So my name is Peter Rands. I'm CEO of Small Pharma. I started the company in 2015. In 2016, we started focusing on treatments for depression. And in 2018, started looking at psychedelics. We initiated a project in 2019 to develop medicines based on DMT. And that's the kind of thrust of the presentation I'll take you through today. I started out as a chemist, and I studied chemistry at Oxford. I did molecular medicine at UCL, then trained and practiced as a patent lawyer for 10 years. I was working in generics for a while at a company called Teva, and I worked at a law firm called Mintz Levin, where I was predominantly working for biotech companies. That sort of spurred the model. And what we do at Small Pharma is develop new innovative medicines based on known active ingredients. The pillars of value that we bring in this offering are a fast route to proof of concept with DMT therapy, which we expect to complete in 2022. We have an expanding portfolio of DMT analogs based on a proprietary deuterium enrichment technology. And we have a robust IP strategy at the core of every project we initiate. We're focused on major depressive disorder because it is the largest unmet need in mental health. 322 million people suffer worldwide. It costs the global economy $1 trillion a year, and only 1 in 3 people respond in an acceptable time frame. The 15% rise in depression in the decade before COVID will probably double or triple in the decade after. The standard of care is selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. They have numerous shortcomings, which we believe psychedelic assisted therapy will improve upon. The market is about $200 billion in annual spend on the treatment of depression, and we in the US, should I say, and the estimated spend in antidepressants in 2023 is about $19 billion. The psychedelic market is a small component of that, but we expect it to be the fastest growing in the next few years. We're focused on psychedelics because they offer the greatest efficacy to safety profile of viable candidates. And we're specifically focused on DMT therapy because it has a short duration of action. A 20 to 30 minute psychedelic experience is given by DMT. You can treat about a dozen or more patients with DMT than in the time taken to treat one patient with psilocybin. We expect an immediate reduction in depression symptoms following the first dose, and we expect a few doses a year to be the paradigm. We expect no serious adverse events, and we know that there is a low abuse potential associated with DMT. The reason we believe it'll work is because of brain imaging studies showing increased global integration in the default mode network in the brain, which is known to be dysfunctional in depressed patients. Psilocybin, LSD have both been shown to have the same effect, and that we believe is the marker for activity with psychedelics. We also take comfort from a study that's been carried out in Brazil on ayahuasca. Ayahuasca is a 1,000-year-old concoction containing DMT and other compounds. In this trial, it was shown to have efficacy in depression. We believe DMT will be the most valuable psychedelic, largely because of the low cost in clinic treatment, but also we have a very cost-effective manufacturing route. So we'll be able to command excellent gross margins. And we think the opportunity with DMT assisted therapy and MDD will show phenomenal growth. To date, we've developed 15 patent applications on 3 psychedelic assets, SPL026, SPL028, and SPL029. We have initiated screening in our phase 1/2A for SPL026, and we will be dosing by the end of this month. We're in collaboration with the Centre for Psychedelic Research. Dr. David Arizzo at Imperial College London is our chief investigator. And we've made enough GMP material to fund this study and several beyond. Let's take a deeper look into our IP. We have 2 patents pending on our synthetic route. We have the highest purity in the literature. We have a very high yield, and it is the lowest cost, most scalable synthesis that we've seen to date. We have 7 patents pending on our deuterium enrichment technology, on which we have a series of new chemical entities on which we're building the 2nd generation of DMT products. We believe that we can optimize the therapeutic experience with these molecules, and with that we will produce the best-in-class psychedelic compound. We have 6 patents pending on finished dose products, including injectable formulations, oral doses, and an inhaled formulation. Our IP strategy is distinguished from our peers in 2 ways. Firstly, of our focus on composition of matter IP, wherever possible. This was a strategy that we deployed with an earlier project that we conducted on a ketamine derivative called 6-hydroxynorketamine. We optimized a solid form of this molecule, patented it, and we're in discussions with a Chinese company regarding taking it further. Our main focus our entire focus for this capital raise is the internal development of our DMT-based medicines, but we're following the same kind of general path that we did with 6-HNK. As far as we can tell, none of our kind of credible competitors have composition of matter IP regarding clinical developments that they have. Cybin, I think, have filed some IP on compositions of matter, but we don't know what they cover. We don't specifically wish to protect therapeutic support. That's something that we think that the community will develop in an open source way. The route to marketing approval is quite long. It's a 7-year development program. The first 2 years will have a few value inflection points. So we'll have a phase 1 interim readout of our safety data showing the tolerability and the best dose to take forward into phase 2 towards the end of this year, and our phase 2A interim readout will be at the end of 2022. We've designed this study to be efficient. We're dosing cohorts of 8 volunteers to identify an optimal dose in phase 1. We're then taking that dose into depressed patients and examining the effects of either 1 or 2 doses in a placebo-controlled crossover study. At the same time, we're developing some preclinical assets based on the deuterium enrichment technology. In broad terms, this technology allows us to modify the pharmacokinetic profile of these drugs so that we can either extend the duration or maintain a duration of psychedelic experience and reduce the peak experience. There are a number of different ways that this can be used to modulate and optimize the psychedelic experience, and by doing that, we're going to optimize the therapeutic experience. And the aim is to develop a best-in-class therapy for the treatment of depression. Now, this model was put to great effect by a company called Celgene, which in the 90s discovered that a repurposed compound could be developed for treatment of multiple myeloma. That compound was thalidomide, and they developed an effective drug, and it generated returns, but they knew that they couldn't get a best-in-class treatment with a repurposed compound. So they sought to optimize, achieved an optimized molecule, lenalidomide. It's the third highest grossing drug in the world. And it underpins $100 billion of value created by Celgene in multiple myeloma. There's a good chance that same opportunity will be presented for such a franchise in the psychedelic space, and we think we are on the right path towards unlocking that. With that in mind, we're developing 2 products at the moment based on our enriched platform. At the moment, we're expecting to go speak to the regulators about the required non-clinical studies this year. And we would imagine that we would initiate a phase 2A study within 2022. But as David will speak to in a second, additional funds that we currently have unallocated could accelerate that development. So at that point, I'll hand you over to David.
All right, so we've got a handful of financial slides I'll take you through. This first slide shows the sort of funds we hope to have available and how we intend to spend that money. So the total available funds will be 63 million, 58 million raised on this financing, and 5 million was raised in January through convertible loan notes. In the next 18 months, we expect to spend 15 million on development. So that's the SPL026 development and pipeline R&D, which is the 28 and the 29. Other operating expenses, 13 million, of which the largest element is the payroll of cost of the company. 5 million of transaction costs for raising the 63 million, which leaves us with unallocated working capital of 30 million. That 30 million will see us through to proof of concept and about 12 months beyond. It also gives us some cushion to cover the unexpected. So, clinical trials need to be extended. Perhaps we need to do other clinical trials. So that gives us cover for that. I think more importantly, it gives management the flexibility to accelerate what's in the pipeline and potentially bring forward phase 2B as well. There will be, as Peter has alluded to, there will be a need to raise funds in the future. In terms of the quantum and the timing of that, we don't know yet. It'll depend on how the clinical trials go. But also it'll depend on how we approach the next stages of development of the company. And those are things we'll be working on over the next few months. Moving on to the next slide. This is the financing history. To date, Small Pharma has raised 13 million Canadian dollars, 3 million through equity, and another nearly 10 million through convertible loan notes. The one I just mentioned, 5 million that was raised in January, and 4.5 million that was raised in 2020. Both of these loan notes will convert when we list on, when the RTO completes and we list. So at that point, there'll be no debt left on the balance sheet. Next slide is about the capital structure. I think it's fairly clear on this slide. If you've got any questions, happy to answer. But I wasn't going to comment too much on that. But the table on the bottom right-hand side, it gives you a view of the lockups on once we list on the venture exchange. Peter?
So, I mean, just to wrap everything up, we are very much focused on DMT. We know what we're doing with IP. We have the right team to take this through these trials out to the market. And we'd be very happy to answer questions.